It's time to take a journey through Sig Daddy's mind on Sig Daddy's Wrestling Show. Here's Sig Daddy.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Sig Daddy's Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Sig Daddy. Sorry for the late edition, putting it on Friday this week instead of Thursday like I said. I apologize for that, but moving forward, I think we're going to do Friday, but I will let you know on social media here in the next few days if I decide to move it to Friday from now on. I think in logic sense, it makes more sense to have it on Friday instead of Thursday because the week's technically not really over yet, but, well, it's closer to the end of the week, Friday is. So I'll let you know here soon on social media, Twitter and Facebook at Sig Daddy Wrestle. That's where I'll have it posted for you. This week, Raw, AEW Dynamite, and NWA Powerrr. And boy, I have a surprise for you coming later on, and that's going to be in the rankings, and you're going to be quite shocked. Very, very shocked, I think. For Raw this week, let's start out with recapping Raw. First thing we have is Brock and Heyman out to officially kick off the show, and Heyman kind of says, Happy New Year to you, bees or whatever, and starts his promo. That was pretty funny, I thought. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And then he says Brock always makes history, and he says who's going to challenge him for the WWE title at the Rumble, and that ends up being nobody. He says not one person on Raw, NXT, or SmackDown is worthy enough to share the spotlight with the Beast incarnate. But Heyman says he's about to do something unprecedented. Brock is entering the Royal Rumble at number 1. I think this is interesting. Very, very interesting. I think this is also Brock's ego getting a little too inflated. They're playing that. And then really, in all reality, this is setting up his next challenger for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Whoever eliminates Brock at the Rumble, which he will get eliminated. I just don't foresee him winning it. Whoever eliminates him will get a shot at the WWE title. Who that may be, I don't know. Who do I want it to be? Drew McIntyre. I'll talk about him later on in this, but I thought this was a pretty cool segment. This sets up a bunch of possibilities at the Rumble for Brock. And it should be fun. It should make the Rumble actually fun to watch and not have Brock in some throwaway WWE Championship match at the pay-per-view. After that, we got Rey Mysterio thanking his son for helping him come back and competing against the best. Says Andrade doesn't deserve to represent the Latinos. Then we get Andrade with Zelina Vega versus Rey Mysterio for the U.S. Championship. And honestly, there was some part of this match that I just was like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for that my whole entire life. My wrestling viewing life. Somebody avoided the stupid double stomp spot. And Rey Mysterio did that. Thank you, Rey. Thank you. Mysterio at one time hits the Canadian Destroyer, has Andrade pinned, but Andrade got his foot put on the ropes by Zelina. And then the match gets restarted after Cone realizes his mistake. Match gets restarted. Andrade misses the knees in the corner. Rey hits a 619. Zelina pulls him out. Rey goes for a Hurricane Rana. Andrade catches him and throws him into Zelina. This was kind of a weird situation, as I think they tried to redo the spot. I think I read somewhere they tried to redo this spot because it just kind of came off as awkward. But Rey goes out to check on Zelina. He feels bad. He's feeling bad for doing that. But then Rey comes back in and gets hammerlock DDT'd, and Andrade retains. Right move there. And then Andrade takes Rey's mask from him, gives it to Zelina as a peace offering for throwing Rey into her earlier. I thought this was a pretty good match, and honestly, these guys can have a good match in their sleep. It's magic every time those two get in the ring together, and we're probably going to get some more of it here soon because later on there's a segment involving the two once again. We get a video recap from last week, kind of talking AOP, showing the story between AOP Rollins and then KO and Joe. Charlie interviews KO and Joe, and they're kind of talking about a third member of their team that will face Rollins and AOP later on tonight. And Joe talks how KO is the enemy and my enemy is my friend, and how they need to watch each other's back. And Joe says they need backup, and it's going to be 3 of them versus 3 of us, like I just said. And Joe says, "Oh, it's not Charlie," but Joe says he's got a guy, but he won't tell KO. And this kind of is a story told on throughout the night. Charlie's trying to get the information from Joe, and he won't tell him. Joe, I'm just going to move on to that part. Joe eventually talks to him. It's like, "Do you want me to show him to you?" And he goes to KO, and KO, he ends up showing KO who it is. After the first segment for Joe and KO, it's Street Profits versus Viking Raiders versus the OC for the Raw Tag Team Championship. That was set up by not the Viking Raiders, but Street Profits beating the OC last week. Dawkins and Ford cut a promo beforehand, says they're changing the conversation, and then they have some remarks for each of the teams before they come in. But this match was a fun trade of athleticism. There was a fun trade of athleticism early in this match by Ivar and Ford. I thought that was pretty fun. But late in the match, Street Profits hit their Spinebuster Frog Splash combo. Anderson throws Ford out and goes for the pin, broken up by Eric. Powerbomb, big splash combo by Eric and Ivar get the job done. This was it was a good tag team match. I honestly would like to see more of it. When the Viking Raiders actually get matches and get time to showcase, they can do a lot of good things. And so can the Street Profits, and so can the OC. But when they stick the Viking Raiders in these pointless squash matches, that gives no opportunity for any other team to develop credibility and to be rightful challengers to the tag team championships. That's what Raw's tag team division is really lacking right now, is depth in the tag team division. Because honestly, there's only 2 teams in contention right now, and that's the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders. Again, Charlie tries to get Joe to tell her the third person on their team. We already went through this. After that, Becky Lynch, she's out in there in her Kill Bill outfit. Pretty cool. To cut a promo saying it's good to hear the fans' voices, force the powers that be to give her a rematch against Asuka here at the Royal Rumble soon. And Becky's like, she might want to rethink what she just did. And they show last year's match at the Rumble where Asuka retained, and then where Asuka beat her 2 months ago and then beat her at TLC. And Becky was going to continue the promo after the video was shown, but Asuka interrupts. She kind of Asuka comes out, talks a bunch of smack before she comes out of the ring. And then Asuka's about to say something, but Becky just sucker punches her in the face and then leaves. I thought that was cool. That was a pretty cool segment. Asuka just kind of being a douche, and Becky's like, screw that, I'm just going to punch you straight in the face. Stop doing that. And this is going to be a good rematch. I'm really excited for the Royal Rumble. That should be a heck of a match. And the story was already there beforehand, and I like this is a good bit of long-term storytelling by WWE. And so far, this episode of Raw has been pretty good. This has been very, very good in comparison to a lot of the Raws I've seen previously, but this one has been the best in quite a while. After that, we get Rowan backstage with Mojo Rawley. He asks if he can take a look inside the cage. Rowan lets him take a peek, and Mojo Rawley has a great reaction to it. Freaks out, and pretty much says, "What's wrong with you, dude?" And honestly, that's the best segment with the cage so far. The best segment with the cage so far. We get Vega and Andrade backstage interview. They get asked if Andrade gets crossed the line. Andrade speaks in Spanish. And then Rey jumps him and beats Andrade down and gets his mask back. So we're going to get another match. We're going to get the three match series, between Rey and Andrade. He also took the U.S. Championship with him, I'm pretty sure. But I don't have any problem with seeing these guys wrestle once again. After that, we get Eric Rowan versus Bug Eyes McGee, because this dude came out and he looked like he had giant bug eyes. Spin kick into the corner. Spin kick, run into the corner, and Iron Claw gets it done. He grabs the dude's eyes and shoves his face into the cage, and the guy gets blood on his face, and he just runs like a complete sissy. It was alright. See, Eric Rowan needs to get out of these squash matches. He needs to face somebody credible. Somebody with some sort of relevance. After that post-commercial, it's AJ Styles versus Akira Tozawa. And before the match, we kind of get a video recap of the AJ Styles, Randy Orton segment from last week where Orton RKO'd him, kind of faking him out with the knee injury. And then we find out next week it's going to be AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. Styles just dominated this match, which I get why. He's pretty frustrated, pretty angry, and Styles hit a phenomenal forearm before the 3 count. Decides, I'm not going to... Well, he lifts him before the 3 count, decides, I'm going to go for some more. He hits a DDT, draping DDT, gets it, and then he mocks Orton's setup for the RKO. He hits the RKO. It was a pretty good RKO by AJ Styles, I gotta admit. And this is just a message sent to Orton there. I'm not a big fan of it being at Tozawa's expense, but I get why they did it there. And then we get some fan supposedly getting in the ring right before break, and security has to take them out. We find out later that it's actually the wedding officiant from last week's wedding with Bobby Lashley and Lana. I thought that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. I was a little confused. I was like, what the heck is there security? Oh, there's a fan in the ring in a suit. Interesting. And then we find out it's the wedding officiant. And we get a wedding segment. The wedding segment, we actually get the wedding this time. It's not really a big wedding. It's just kind of They just redo the wedding. It's official, and Lana says it's too damn bad for the people who didn't want to see them get married last week. And they get the wedding done real quick. Lana gets on the mic after they do the end of it. Lana pretty much says this is supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Says it isn't, though, because no one wants to see the ring on her finger, and then calls everyone basic civilians that should have been honored to be in her midst. Lashley says Rusev ruined their day, and we get the beautiful Rusev on screen with a beach backdrop, and he's in a sleeveless Hawaiian shirt. And Rusev makes a good point, says they're more miserable than everyone in the arena. Since they didn't take their own honeymoon, he decided to take his very own. And he put together a beautiful wedding album chronicling the wedding of last week, and it was pretty dang funny. Rusev mocks them, and then Lana says Rusev ruins everything. Bobby actually tells Lana to shut up at one time. Lashley then threatens to rip Rusev's balls off. A little excessive there, Bobby. But actually he said he's going to rip his balls off and shove them down his throat. And that's not a great visual. Not a great visual, Bobby. Kind of scary. Then Rusev says he's going to do unspeakable things to him. And whatever it is left, it's all yours, Lana. I thought this was one of their best segments. I was entertained by this. After that, we got Charlie talking to R-Truth backstage, talking about breaking his own record for all-time championships. Liv interrupts. Liv will be in Rusev's corner for next week since Lana will be in Lashley's, so that should be an interesting dynamic there. Charlotte versus Sarah Logan. This is the S and the Rowan match. Two of the things I didn't like on this show. Pre-match, Logan attacks Charlotte. We didn't get anything out of this. We just got Charlotte and Logan fighting pretty much. Charlotte ends up getting her, well, Charlotte ends up getting the last lap in this by hitting a big boot and then tells John Cone to get her robe. She gets it and leaves. Logan's trying to show a little bit of a vicious side, I guess. I didn't really buy it there, but at least we did get to see a vicious side of Logan, and that we don't ever get to see her on TV anymore. But I really didn't understand the point of that segment at all. Worst thing on the show so far. And then we get McIntyre versus No Way Jose. McIntyre, before the match even starts, attacks one of the guys from the conga line. Jose gets in some offense before McIntyre bellies to bellies him. And McIntyre's belly to belly is impressive. And then he destroys another conga line member. Jose hits some strikes. Then he eats a big giant boot. Jose rolls him up. McIntyre hits a future shock DDT. Always love that move. And then a Claymore kick for the win. McIntyre then throws Jose into conga line post-match. And McIntyre has just been entertaining these last few weeks. And honestly, I don't know what he is right now. He's not really a heel. And the fans are getting behind him. And he's not really a face. And then McIntyre gets on the mic post-match, asks if anyone dares me to do another Claymore kick, and then says, "Who double dares me?" McIntyre then hits another one with a mic in his hand. McIntyre hits it with the mic in his hand and then nips up. And McIntyre, like I said, he's been awesome and fun in these segments, and I love this that he's getting an opportunity to showcase his personality. But he says it's sad that that he's not received a singles opportunity at the WWE Championship, and says he's entering himself in the Royal Rumble. And like I said earlier, I think he should win. I honestly think he should win. He has had so many stop-starts here recently, or in the last year or so. This guy has the look. He's showing that he has the charisma. Give him the shot at the WWE Championship. And if he wins the Royal Rumble, that will be huge. Imagine how much of a reaction that gets. That's a believable guy taking on Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. Even if he doesn't win, have him eliminate Brock. That sets up the match at WrestleMania. That's a money match. Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar. But really, flat out enjoying McIntyre recently. We get Aleister Black versus Shelton Benjamin. They kind of strike. This is a strike-heavy match. Kind of what Aleister Black's motto is, but not motto, but his kind of thing is. Shelton hits a kick. Black hits a flying knee. Then Black hits Black Mass to get it done. It was just like a striking match. Buddy Murphy then attacks him post-match. I didn't think we needed this, but I guess we can get another match out of him, a good match. I thought the feud was over, but it's going to be another match, and Buddy Murphy brutalizes him outside the ring post-match. And we're going to get Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy, their third match here next week. AOP and Seth Rollins, this is the main event, versus Joe, KO, and the mystery guy is the Big Show. Interesting. He hasn't had a match. He didn't have a match in over a year. That was pretty surprising. But Seth cuts a pre-match promo. Big Show pretty much destroys everyone before the commercial. KO dominates Seth post-commercial. KO gets knocked off of the apron following a distraction. Rollins' team just takes turns dominating KO. Big Show eventually gets the hot tag, beats down Rollins for a bit. Joe gets thrown into the steps by AOP. Big Show tries to hit his chokeslam. Big Show tries to chokeslam Rollins. Then AOP. Rollins then hits him with the chair, causing the DQ finish. Big Show, KO, and Joe get the win with the DQ. KO grabs Seth's foot as he's going for the stomp on Big Show. Big Show then hits him with the KO punch. That's the end of Raw. And we're going to get a rematch next week with a fist fight. Never heard of that in WWE, but should be interesting. And I'm all about KO and Joe teaming up, so let's keep this going. But honestly, overall, this was a pretty dang good episode of Raw. Not sure if it tops the rankings. We'll find that out later. But really, really good episode of Raw, I thought. AEW Dynamite. We start out with Adam Page versus Kenny Omega. And Kenny Omega versus the Private Party, Cassidy and Quinn. The story of this match was kind of the miscommunication between Adam Page and Kenny Omega that's been continuing over the past few weeks. They seem to get it together by the end because Adam Page and Kenny would hit a buckshot V-trigger combo followed by a one-winged angel to get the pin and the win. This was a fun tag team match to start off the show. And like I said, they continue the story of Adam Page and Kenny Omega not being on the same page and Adam Page not being on the same page with the Elite as a whole. But they seem to be okay after this one. Adam Page and Kenny shake hands post-match. Pac then backstage. He has the brutalizer in on Nakazawa. He wants his match against Kenny. Omega then runs backstage. And then during commercial break, Adam Page is drinking beers with the fans. He was drinking last week. He's drinking again this week. Then Brandy joins commentary for this next match, and boy, this was crap. Chris Statlander versus Riho for the AEW Women's World Championship. And this was just hijacked by all of this overbooking nonsense and BS. Just garbage. Couldn't even really get into the match because there were so many distractions and stuff. Because the Nightmare Collective came down, Kong and Melanie Cruz came down to ringside. And while the ref was distracted, Riho was took out by Cruz. Statlander then takes both Cruz and Kong out. And then Randy leaves the commentary table and gets in Statlander's face. And then this Luther guy, this deathmatch Luther guy from Japan comes out of under the ring. Excalibur pointed him out, but I had no freaking clue who this guy is. And nor did I really care. And Luther stops Statlander from punching Brandy. Then Kong takes Statlander out. Riho, before going for a finisher, hits a crossbody on Luther. Back inside the ring, Riho goes for her stomp and it misses. Trades some counter. Statlander hits a Michinoku driver, but then goes for her finisher, her kind of tombstone-like finisher. Kong then pulls her feet from underneath the ring, from off the apron. Well, Statlander was near the end of the ring, and Kong pulled out her feet from underneath her, and Riho got the roll-up win. And like I said, this was just crap. I wish we could have actually gotten a match between Statlander and Riho. I thought it would have been good. But no, we had to do this overbooking nonsense with the Nightmare Collective that I care a little bit about, but not enough to have this mess of overbooking in a match. It was just terrible. And I said this on my notes. This is quite possibly the worst thing AEW's done so far. And it's their worst thing they've done on television. Post-match, Shida makes the save. Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida were both ringside. Doesn't decide. Baker's like, "Hey, I'm not going to make the save," because she has issues with Riho and her showing up at certain times. But Shida comes in, makes the save. After that, we get Kip Sabian, Penelope Ford video covering their alliance. Then we get Christopher Daniels versus Sammy Guevara next, and also not very good. At the end of this, Daniels hitting his Uranagi. Pentagon Jr. is telling him to show me, because he tried to go for the moonsault a couple weeks ago on Penta and absolutely messed it up and pretty much landed on his head. Guevara hits a kick in the head for the win. Like I said, it wasn't very good. Back-to-back things, not very good. And then we get Dark Order coming out, which tops it all off. I've been enjoying some of the stuff Dark Order's been doing recently, but I didn't really enjoy this. Evil Uno comes out and talks up Christopher Daniels, says AEW faithful doesn't believe in him anymore. Uno also says he can help Christopher Daniels be the man he once was and offers him to be a creeper, and tells SCU was a thing of the past and to join Dark Order. And like we all know, Daniels is not going to join Dark Order. I get they're trying to tease this stuff, but try to do it with some actual believable guys. Creepers then beat Daniels down. SCU head down. Young Bucks come in to make the save. Grayson tries to fight everyone else. Then Scorpio Sky takes out one creeper. Bucks take out another one, and Daniels hits his Uranagi, followed by the BME. It was all right. I know they're trying to make Dark Order a big deal. I get what they're trying to do, but I just didn't. I wasn't feeling this. We get Lucha Brothers versus Cody and Dustin with Arn Anderson in their corner. Kind of the turning point was Cody turning his head and getting super kicked by Ray Phoenix. Dustin getting beaten down on the break. At one time, Phoenix tried to go for a chair. Arn kicks it out of his hands. Oh, it didn't look great, but Dustin hits a spine buster, hot tags Cody. Cody comes in out like a ball of fire, and the fans really wanted this. Late Dustin hits a destroyer on Ray. Just that's getting a little bit to be overused. It's fun to watch, but getting a little bit overused. Penta gets hit with a flying cutter by Cody. Then Dustin hits the final reckoning, also known as the final cut, for the 1, 2, 3. I thought this was a fun tag match between the Lucha Brothers and Cody, with Dustin, his brother. And Cody's still building up some momentum now. Shivani tries to talk to Cody post-match. Arn then cuts a promo on MJF, and he doesn't think MJF has the stroke to call for those stipulations in their upcoming match. And they're going to talk things over for next week. MJF out to the ring with Wardlow to cut another promo. Tells Cody that he's a coward. It's a really good promo by MJF once again. He ends up bringing DDP out because Cody won't come out himself. And DDP kind of plugging everything and stuff, and talking how he doesn't believe he would if he would have told him 19 years ago that he would have been in a ring on TNT, be on TNT on a show called AEW Dynamite, you'd be smoking crack. But MJF got on his phone and actually tweeted during this. It was pretty funny. I thought that was a nice little touch. DDP then addresses the question of one more match. MJF tells him he couldn't lace his boots in his prime. Then he sends the Butcher and the Blade to do his dirty work for him, and DDP hits a diamond cutter on both of them. Yeah, before he hits the diamond cutters on him, he says answer option A was to kiss my ring and leave the company, and then option B was to put him in the hospice, and says he's going to do his daughter. Then, like I said, diamond cutters on Butcher and Blade. Beats him up for a second. MJF hit a low blow like he did on Cody. They beat him up for a second. QT Marshall and Dustin come out. Dustin and Aubrey Edwards also come out to make the save. This sets up a 6-man for next week. It's going to be DDP and DDP, QT Marshall, and Dustin Rhodes versus MJF. I don't get this. I get this is kind of just to be a one-off kind of thing. MJF and then the Butcher and the Blade. But it was entertaining. We had Jurassic Express versus Best Friends. After Luchasaurus, he got the hot tag. He eventually meets Orange Cassidy, which was very fun. Big pop. Cassidy hits a stunner, blind tag to Jungle Boy. He hits a drop kick on Jungle Boy, does Cassidy. And then a tope on Luchasaurus. Combo offense from the Best Friends. Cassidy hits a falling dive onto Jungle Boy. Count broken up by Stunt. Stunt then hits a destroyer on Trent. Luchasaurus throws Stunt into Trent and Cassidy. And Chuck goes for a powerbomb. Jungle Boy hits a Hurricane Rana. Roll up for the win. Harmless fun there. Jungle Boy finally gets a pinfall win. Jungle Boy trying to carry his momentum from the Jericho match from the end of the year. Fun to see. Jurassic Express finally get a win. Best Friends and Cassidy can afford a loss here. Then matches are previewed for next week. And we get Moxley's answer, the moment we have all been waiting for on this episode of AEW Dynamite. And Moxley says he didn't come to AEW for money. He says he can't be bought. And to run roughshod and dominate professional wrestling. And he's going to join the Inner Circle. He says there's no more dominant force than the Inner Circle. Moxley says he believes Jericho will be the greatest of all time. Then Moxley tells him to pop a little bit of the bubbly. Then Jericho's celebrating with them. He says 2020 will be the year of the Inner Circle. He celebrates with them in ring. Moxley, he motions for the keys to the 4GT. Chance of it, you sold out, all right, Moxley. For 1 second did I believe Moxley really joined the Inner Circle. I knew he was going to play him until the last, I don't know about the last very moment, but he was going to play him for a while, and he played him until the last very moment. Right before the end of the show, Moxley tells Jericho that he's kidding. You know, Moxley and Jericho, the only ones in ring as Hager and Guevara have exited. He says, I'm just kidding. I'd never join Inner Circle. And then he says, you have nothing I want except the AEW World Championship. Hits him with the bubbly. Hits a paradigm shift on Jericho and Guevara. And that was pretty freaking awesome way to end the show. I knew it was never going to happen, that Moxley was going to join the Inner Circle, but man, was that fun while it lasted. And I loved it how they swerved him at the end, and Moxley just said, just kidding. And he also took the car keys, which made perfect sense with his character. In closing on this episode of AEW Dynamite, I thought this was probably the worst episode of Dynamite I've seen. I didn't like the Daniels-Guevara match. I didn't like the Dark Order stuff. I really hated the Chris Statlander-Riho match. And that was due to all the overbooked nonsense and interference with the Nightmare Collective. That just took a lot away from me on this show. It was just very disappointing. And I don't want to see that stuff. But we're going to end on a high note here. NWA Powerrr. Tim Storm starts out with Joe Galley. And they're talking about how there's going to be 2 open invitation spots in the TV title tournament. And he said he'd be proud to represent the company as the TV title holder. And he tells the fans they got screwed out of Aldis and Storm when Aldis backed out. And like he said, he didn't get the best possible match. Fans deserve this match. Storm's doing a very good job with his promo work. I enjoy his promo work quite a bit. Camille then comes out, pushes Galley out of the way, holds the mic in front of Storm. And then Storm talks about the person that she comes out with and talking about Aldis. how he could no-show a main event. Fans deserve to see him. And ask him, why do you represent this coward? Camille comes in and then just slaps him in the face, Storm is livid, but he holds back because he's not going to hit a woman. Camille just smirks and leaves. I thought that was enjoyable. And then Storm and Camille have issues already, as Camille was one that kind of did the swerve and speared Storm. Marquez, and then with the Dawsons and Murdoch before they draw a couple not tag matches, but the TV title tournament qualifier match. Well, they draw a TV title qualifier match. Trevor says he gets asked what he thinks of all the men in the tournament. Murdoch says he thinks he can beat every one of them. Then Anastasia picks one name, and it's Zane Dawson, and his other one. The other one they picked, Dave Dawson. So the brothers will face each other in the TV title qualifying tournament next week. And then we get Thomas Latimer versus Trevor Murdoch next week. So that should be fun. Hard-hitting match between those two. We get the one TV title tournament qualifier match for tonight. For that night, it was Zicky Dice versus Caleb Conley. Conley in this match used his quickness early, almost scored a roll-up and scored a drop kick. He dominated the early portion of the match, first 3 minutes or so, using some of his high-flying tactics. Dice catches him and hits a Northern Lights suplex, misses with a cannonball. Conley then makes a comeback with strikes. Conley hits a big boot and back suplex, misses with his moonsault, and then Zicky Dice hits a snake rattle and roll. Swinging neck breaker for the 3 count. And to qualify for the TV title tournament coming up at Hard Times. And I thought this was an all-right match, and it was effective for the 6 minutes they had. And Galley, he interviews Shooter Stevens and Shooter Stevens, the national champion. Stevens playing up how is his sensei, and says he's learned more about himself as a person. Stevens says he brought him here and helped get him accustomed to this country. And he said he used to not think titles were important, but has helped him and guided him and changed his mindset. And he doesn't think anyone's worthy to challenge him for the title right now. So he will be a 10th degree TV champion, tag champion, and when the stars align, he'll be the world's heavyweight champion. After that, we get Thunder Rosa versus ODB with Allison Kay on commentary, closing portions of the match. Thunder Rosa has a chokehold, ODB backs her into a corner. ODB shoulder blocks Rosa. Rosa goes up to the middle rope. Jumped, got caught into a fallaway slam. ODB then goes to the second rope herself, misses with the dive, and then Rosa hits a running drop kick. Misses with a kick. ODB goes for a finisher, gets reversed into a backstabber, and then Rosa hits her double stomp to the back for a 1-2-3 win. Rosa talking trash after the match. I thought it was an all-right match, not bad. It was very strike heavy, like I said. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it was a strike heavy match between ODB and Rosa, and it kind of needed to be. That was hard hitting and stuff, and I enjoyed it. Joe Galley with Nick Aldis, and Aldis kind of plays up, says everything he said about Camille was true, and he's talking about how he can justify the actions against Tim. Storm calls Storm a relic, then calls out Ricky Morton also. Talks about James Storm and Eli Drake, and he inserts his guys into the tag match coming up in a few minutes. Well, coming up in a little bit, and then talks about Ricky Starks and his opponent, and then people question him that he can't get the job done in 6 minutes, and the only place he takes longer than 6 minutes is in bed. I liked that. That was funny. And he says he can go all night, and then he wants to prove that he can beat an athlete like Starks, and says he keeps the lights on around here, kind of saying how he built NWA and how this TV show came into fruition. And he wants to prove why he could have won the TV title tournament. Yeah, Aldis dominates the first half. Aldis dominates the first half of the match. Suplex, fallaway slams. Starks makes a comeback with 3 minutes left. Hits a sling blade, drop kick off the middle rope. Aldis exits the ring, and Starks hits a top rope suicida. Starks goes for a moonsault, misses. Cloverleaf attempt gets reversed in a roll up by Starks, actually an inside cradle. Starks then goes for his finisher. Aldis then gets in a cloverleaf, and he holds it in for over a minute on him before the match ends in a draw. I thought this was a good way to build up Ricky Starks here, and I said it was effective, and it's making him a star. He's hanging in the ring with the world's heavyweight champion, and then Ricky Morton comes out of the ring, comes out afterwards, and kind of talks. Says the match was great. And he says he wants Aldis to give Starks 5 more minutes since Starks put up such a good fight. And Aldis then says, Aldis refuses to give Starks 5 more minutes. And Aldis says he won the lottery by being in the ring with him. And Morton asks if he will give him 5 minutes. So Morton and Aldis now. Aldis then refuses. Aldis leaves. This continues the issues stemming from a couple weeks ago with Morton and Aldis, and gives Starks this match gave Starks kind of a star-making performance. We get the main event match after that: Cowboy, James Storm, and Eli Drake versus Ken Anderson and Colt Cabana. At one time, James Storm skins the cat and hits a head scissors at one time. I was impressed. I don't even know if I've ever seen James Storm hit that kind of stuff, but maybe the skinning the cat, but I don't know if I've ever seen him hit a head scissors. Drake gets a hot tag, hits Russian leg sweep, power slam, and big running elbow drop on Anderson. Cabana then gets eventually tagged in after Anderson hits Drake from behind. Anderson using dirty tactics. Cabana's not a big fan of that. And Cabana's been backing Anderson for quite a while now, and it's getting to the point where he's starting to really have big issues with Ken Anderson and the way he's been performing and kind of treating his opponents. Drake hits a missile drop kick. He goes for the hot tag, but Ken Anderson pulls James Storm's foot out, throws his foot up against the ring. Cabana gets a Superman pin on Drake. Drake then kicks out at the last possible second. Then Anderson gets in the face of the official and then grabs him, and then the Colt forces the DQ finish. I am perfectly fine with that as this continues the issues with Anderson and Cabana, as Cabana had his back, but he's starting to really question it here, and they kind of argue post-match. But before the show ends, Strictly Business has to come out, and he tells the fans that wildcards didn't come out because he has the power to give and take, and they didn't think they should have been in a match with those kind of odds. Aldis invites Ricky Morton and the Rock and Roll Express to come out. Aldis proposes Team Aldis versus Team Morton next week. Neither one of them competing because Aldis says he doesn't want Morton to have an excuse when he loses to Nick Aldis for the World Championship. Aldis then announces it's going to be the wild cards and a special third man, but it's going to be Gibson on the other side with 2 partners for him, but the wild cards, and Aldis then reveals the third member of Team Aldis is Scott Steiner, so it's going to be Scott Steiner and the wild cards versus Robert Gibson and whoever he chooses as his 2 partners next week. So if Morton's team wins, Morton gets a shot at Nick Aldis for the World Championship. And I thought that was a cool reveal at the end. Scott Steiner revealed as a partner of Nick Aldis, and they've worked together in TNA before, and probably, I'm assuming Steiner's probably worked with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson before. But honestly, this was a very good episode of Powerrr. I really enjoyed the Starks Aldis match. Tim Storm's segment was very good also. I love the stuff with Aldis and Morton, and also the Steiner debut. And I liked that they keep telling the story of Anderson and Cabana and their issues. Stuff, like I said, honestly, NWA Powerrr is the most consistent wrestling show around right now. It is consistently good every single week. It may not top the rankings every week in my weekly rankings, but it is consistently good every single week, and I've really, really enjoyed it. But without further ado, let's reveal the rankings for this week. At the bottom, normally they're at the top, it's AEW Dynamite. Just the Dark Order stuff, the Daniels match, and the stuff in the Nightmare Collective with that Statlander Riho match just absolutely bogged the show down for me. In second place, moving up this week, Monday Night Raw. A very enjoyable episode of Monday Night Raw. It's just got inched out by the most consistent wrestling show around in NWA Powerrr. Very, very good stuff from NWA Powerrr this week. Loved the Starks match. And just loved how everything made sense. Very, very enjoyable. And that's going to do it for my weekend review for this week. But make sure to tune in next week. It'll be either Thursday or Friday. I'll let you know on the socials here in the next few days or so. Make sure to follow me on the socials, Facebook and Twitter at SigDaddyWrestle. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcast, and on Spotify. But until next time, this is Sig Daddy signing off, thanking you all for listening, and so long, everybody.